welcome you all for this special talk by Professor Sriram Ramakrishna. He is Everest Chair, National University of Singapore, and I now request Dr. Venkatamana.
Yeah, good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Institute lecture, which will be delivered by Professor Sriram from NUS. So just a quick introduction about the speaker. Professor Sriram Ramakrishna is the Everest Chair at National University of Singapore. He did his PhD from University of Cambridge, and then later on was also trained at Harvard. He has several awards to his hat. He has been professional. He has professional distinctions. He's the fellow of UK Royal Society of Engineering. He is also the distinguished IITM alumni. And then he's been ranked as the most influential scientific minds by Thomas Reuters. His Google Scholar has more than 1,200 peer-reviewed journal publications with 150,000 citations, an I-index of 1157, H-index of 167. Coming to his academy, he has also been doing a lot of, he has done different academic leadership roles in NUS, like the Vice President Research Strategy, Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Director of NUS Enterprise, so on. The list is too big. And then he's also been the Global Engineering Dean's Council, served as the Global Engineering Dean's Council. He's the founding member of the Plastic Recycling Association of Singapore. He has authored books on sustainability for beginners and the changing phase of innovation. He's the member of World Bank Advisory Group for the India Tertiary Education NEP Dialogue, analytical and advisory work. So sometime back before the speakers, all of them came, there was a slide which had shown all the achievements of the professor. I once again welcome you, Professor. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Welcome you again to IIT Tirupati. I'm sure all of you will have enjoyed the talk. Yeah, thank you. With these few words, I welcome Professor again.
I can use this, that's fine. I stand here. Test, yeah. Well, thank you, Venkatraman, for your kind introduction. And let me begin by saying how grateful I am to Director KL Sachinarayana. Of course, my good friend, Professor Natarajan, we know each other for many years. He actually says we are competitors. I would not use the word competitors. We're actually good friends. And all of you, and it's wonderful to see. You saw the lecture's title is about net zero and circular economy. I think actually after I came here this morning, I was taken to Tirumala. I had darshan. Again, thanks to the IIT, I could have in a short time a quick darshan, even though I came midnight last night. So when I visited, and I had this pleasant experience with darshan, followed by, I even had even more fantastic experience. Can you guess? It's related to this topic. First of all, you've been to Tirupati, the Tirumala, you had laddu, yes? Yes, laddu bag. What does it say? I'm not a plastic. Absolutely. So that's it summarizes what I actually wanted to say. So this looks like my essence of my talk is already spoken there. The laddu bag, it says clearly, I'm not plastic. And what it means is it signifies two important things, that Tirumala as well as the rest of India cares about circular economy and sustainability. Second, it's even more interesting that certain things are already happening through the innovation. Actually, to replace a plastic bag, which is readily compostable, not easy. It's not easy, even though we think it's simple. When a plastic degrades, normally what we are dealt with microplastics, known to give problems to the health, human health, as well as the ecosystem of the planet. So replacing a fossil fuel-based plastic with the alternative compostable plastic still does the job, is really already a progress. So I'm very happy. I said, oh, that's it, my speech is set. And I took a photo, but my slides are many, 150 slides. So I had no chance to add that slide. Otherwise, I would have the next slide would be that slide only. So it's a fantastic example. So I chose this title because fundamentally, this is the direction things are heading globally. And I thought I should share this excitement with all of you. Even though 150 slides are there, I would not take more than 40 minutes. Rest of the slides are meant for you to look at them closely if you are interested. Yeah. So a copy would be made available to you through the organizers. So you have a chance to read the slides at your own pace. Okay, before that, a bit of commercial. So I'm from Singapore, but the director already convinced we are much better than Singapore. He showed me the beautiful landscape that's coming. So I would just hold back and say, well, Singapore is as nice as the future of this place, right? So that's the Singapore. And I'm sure Jagdish Babu sitting there, he knows Singapore. So it's beautiful. If you had not visited, tell the director that you have a conference to attend in Singapore, right? So there are other collaborations you can build in Singapore. Second is just like any leading destination in the world, most of them actually go through the modern means of communication, and they communicate with the potential visitors. Here, Singapore is using AI and virtual influencers. So they basically, in the metaverse and so many other things, they are reaching out to the people, continue to bring tourists. Just to get you a number, Singapore population is 6 million. Tourists are actually 60 million. So you can see what happens. 10 times more visitors. So we have to sell the story well, and we seem to be doing well. So in case you still didn't believe that that's a real picture or a virtual animation, that's a real picture because I took it. And I took it about maybe 3 months ago. I had a visitor and I took that picture. So it's as beautiful as that. It's nice. Okay, so come to the university. This is the National University of Singapore, where I'm working. And this is a beautiful campus. And in many subjects, we are in the top 10 in the world. To give the context, maybe 25 years ago, it was primarily a teaching university. For the last 25 years, it has become a world-class university. And consistently, we are #1 in Asia and top 11 in the world. And many subjects we do very well. And again, to show you the proof that I work at that university, this is a photo with my own student. She's a PhD student, works with me. And so that's, again, we know all the students want to have good memory. So we actually created that logo so people can sit there, take photos. It's good. So it's part of giving you the memories. So university has lots of very great scientists, and these what we call top scientists at the National University of Singapore. And it's intentional. I'm there. That's why I'm also showing you, right? So it's always to promote people that from different parts of the world contributing to the same ecosystem. So this is NUS ranked top university. And rankings has a lot of debates, but I would want to give a bit of personal opinion. Is it is always questionable, the methodologies, what they're aspired to do. But at the same time, there are 20,000 universities in the world, 350 million students there in the universities. Some of them are first generation university going students. They actually have no idea how to choose institutions, how to go about. That's where the ranking is useful. And more recently, it got even more interested. Here, UK government said, if you are a graduate from Singapore, but if you're from the top 50 universities, you can come to UK and look for a job. So you don't need a visa. So it's fantastic. So my own niece, in fact, when I told her, come to my university, she said, no, I go to the other university because you are in this university, right? Which is a standard. So I said, fine, but the other university is not ranked, but it's good university in Singapore. Now, after this message, she called me, uncle, I should have listened to you. I would have gone to UK very easily because she wanted to go to UK because her sister went to UK and sister got married and she's living there. So she automatically thinks she should go there. So why I'm saying the long story is sometimes ranking, visibility, global reputation matters. So I'm from here. In case you are wondering, I'm Andhra guy, so I can speak in Telugu also. So, but it matters to have a good international reputation. So that is helpful in many ways. Yeah, that's why I say that. And these are numbers about our university, but I'm not here to go through all those numbers. Roughly, we produce 11,000 papers a year as a university. So quite a research intense university. Now, coming to the topic, as I said at the beginning, I already got the glimpse of sustainability at Tirumala Temple. And I look at Niti Aayog has been releasing information how India is focusing on 17 sustainable development goals, and India has been progressing well. So right below is a text I took. Anybody can guess who wrote that? Please, this one, the one at the bottom. My mother collects water and then we save it, we recycle it. Hello? I heard some name. Yes, I read the speech just 3 days ago. It came in Times of India, so I took that part. Essentially what I'm trying to say is actually most Indians know the basics of sustainability. And that's why I strongly believe India can do a lot of things in sustainability and circular economy. So the rest of my speech, actually, I'll show you what's going on in the world and in a specific sectors, because I can't cover all the sectors in 40 minutes, but I'll give you a glimpse of it. Okay, so for example, I was in Delhi recently before I came here. Previously, they were giving slippers, which are actually plastics. And now they're actually replaced with jute-based slippers. Again, it would be, I'm sure, if they start selling them globally, there'll be a huge market. And it's a huge market. Yeah. And of course, I wish India another 75 years a good run, like the way the last 75 years. So net zero, essentially becoming very important because net zero is about the total carbon emissions by an organization, by an individual, or by a country to the atmosphere. The goal is to break it as neutral as possible. So there's a statistics, it says, if we have good air and atmosphere living conditions, you would live 5 years longer. So obviously it is related to the health. And of course, IIT Tirupati can say we have the best air conditions here, right? So probably we can attract more people. Yeah, so the other one is it's also causing mental stress. Not often reported in India, but countries like Singapore and rest of the world, it's a major issue. Being a psychology professor, you would know it's something, philosophy. So philosophy and psychology would be very close. And in my opinion, so the key is how do we make people feel less stressful? And mental stress is caused by many other issues in addition to the pollution and also the change in our food structures and things. Okay, so again, India is generally seen as a young country, but I'm beginning to see there's an aging population. So it's no longer the same we should think. There's actually a growing number of senior people in India. So now coupled with pollution and healthcare, and that would be a major concern in the future. That's why net zero becomes also very important. So just 6 months ago, Indian government announced India will be net zero in terms of emissions by 2070. So all other major countries have said 2050. So what it means is all the industries would be looking at how to transition to with the better technologies, better solutions. So that's the direction where it is heading. Being a technology institution, you would be thinking, which of my technology, which of my solutions would contribute to the future innovative way of these organizations? And it's immense because the worldwide, it is already happening. Like Singapore is going through restructuring, and most of the industries, including our Jurong Island, which has the largest petrochemical complex, they are actually talking about carbon neutral. It's massive. So that's why I said the topic is very relevant, what's going on in the global context as well as India. And then these are more details. The energy, Director was saying, you will have a focus on hydrogen, which is, I think, a very good direction, as well as other better energy sources. And energy efficiency is already well known. Many companies have been practicing it. There are many ways you can improve the energy efficiency. So if you are a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, more or less, if you're looking at energy systems, you have been always talking about energy efficiency. Even the building sector, primarily they improved the credentials because they focused on building design, performance to lower the energy footprint, and they now call it energy plus buildings. So that's basically how architecture, civil engineering is going in that direction. So these are more details. If you are interested, especially if you are in a circular economy sustainability, United Nations actually coming up the framework. It's called Scope 1, 2, and 3 reporting. Companies like Apple, all the major companies now actually report their carbon emissions, carbon footprint using this methodology. It's already happening. You can check the Apple company, they would have a report. You can check Hitachi, all those major companies. Yeah. Okay, these are methodologies. I won't go into these details. And when they are reporting, sometimes people have less knowledge of exactly environmentally sound decisions they are making. And here is an example. They are the suppliers for major companies, small farmers. So when a major company starts looking at the supply chain, they're actually looking at the carbon credentials, environmental, social, and governance aspects of the farmers, that community. See, if it is not of adequate standard, they would switch the supplier. For example, in this case, I'm talking about palm oil plantation in Ivory Coast. It could be cotton from India, tobacco from India. So if you're thinking it's only the game of the major companies, it's not the game of small players, no. Because major players are actually cascading their decision to the supply chain and the value chain. And that's why we need to pay attention. So when IIT Tirupati is talking about modern agriculture, that's exactly. So you're thinking of improving the yields, efficiency of agriculture, making it more sustainable. Okay, so there's more details. There is always such thing happen, inflation of the what they claim, and it's a serious exercise, and you can see big banks, especially the CEOs, losing their jobs internationally. And these are more details. Okay, now I go to the concept of circular economy. Circular economy concept is not new. I read an article by Shashi Tharoor, again in Times of India, maybe 2 weeks ago. He was mentioning the Indian government actually, at the time, then Prime Minister gave a speech in Stockholm. And then later on, there was a meeting in what they call Club of Rome. So that led to the forming of United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. So UNEP is the one guiding organization which is driving net zero agreements among the governments. The latest one was the Paris Agreement. There would be next one coming up, which is in 2 years from now. Every country would agree in limiting the production. So how much quantity of materials, especially the plastics, you're going to produce in your country would be limited. Or you self-declare and say, I would limit the numbers. So now imagine you have 1.4 billion people wanting to have higher standards of living. How are you going to give them the better standards of living? You need innovation in plastics, materials, period. So that's a fundamental shift that's happening. I gave that example of Prasadam's bag, right? Which is exactly that. Okay, so this is what they say. The materials consumption has grown and is unsustainable. And planet does not have enough resources. And that's why, okay, I go into the detail. They proposing the concept of circular economy. That means you keep the materials in use as long as possible. You recycle them, you upcycle them. That's primarily the circular economy. So if we have the progress in circular economic thinking, world would not need so much materials, and we could still provide better standards of living for 7 billion people or even 9 billion people. So that's why there is an emphasis on circular economic business models, manufacturing worldwide. So that's the definition of circular economy by ISO standard, which I'm a member of the ISO committee, which defines circular economy. This standard will be released in 2 months from now, where we define what is circular economy. So that's an idea. And that's linear economy, which has been followed since the Industrial Revolution for the past 200 to 300 years. India has been following that, China, the rest of the world. This produces lots of waste, it produces lots of emissions and pollution. There are healthcare costs and social costs. But moving to this one is a much better scenario. So to do that, if you do that, you design out waste by a product design. So I know you have a mechanical engineering manufacturing. You are looking at how you design the product with the end in mind. For example, you are designing this building. You're already designing at the end of life of this building, how would I disassemble? Perhaps repurpose every brick and panel and everything that's there in this building again. So that's the thinking you build in at the time of conceiving the first building. So that's it. So you design out the waste, and there's lots of other concepts. Okay, the best example is this one, a simple one, because we all know what is a watch and how complex is a watch. So this is a Swiss-made watch. They say 98% of materials are all recycled. It's not so easy. So it's very difficult. So if they could do this, that means they are cracking the problem of recycling and making sure properties are retained while you are recycling materials. Okay, there's more details. I understood Coca-Cola in India is now saying they will phase out all the single-use fossil fuel-derived plastics. It's a major. Coca-Cola is billions of bottles, not hundreds of thousands. We're talking about billions. And for them to actually replace it, it's a massive change in the industry. So that impacts all the suppliers all the way to the recycling industry. Okay, so these are companies like McKinsey, E&Y. They say which sectors will have a major investments. These are consulting reports, and there are several such reports. If I notice some of the verticals, exactly what Director Sachinarayana was telling me, some of the focus areas you're going to build are not sure here in this institute. I feel that's absolutely right. You are thinking in the right way and making things happen in the right way. Okay, so you're not bothered about the industry. You just want to have a research career, a job. You want to be a PhD student, postdoc, or some professor job. Essentially, it's all about papers, publications, impact. So circular economy publications are picking up. I'm actually now the editor-in-chief for one of the journals we started 3 years ago. It's been picking up very well. So worldwide, there's a good interest. So now I'm going to take that and illustrate through 3 examples: textiles, food, and housing. These are common to every human being. So that's why I picked them. But there's many other sectors one could look at. So I quickly show you how this circular economy sustainability thinking is actually changing these industries. So, well, you notice me and Gandhi has a commonality, right? Yeah, hairstyle is same, except all of you are full of hair. So, well, anyway, that's not the reason I put Gandhi's photo. I have full deep respect for him. He promoted about the certain way of looking at textiles. So, of course, this recently I was in Jalandhar, where I was looking at their textile processing. Point here is textiles is so basic. That's why it touches the hearts of every human being. Yeah, just like the food. So the fast fashion industry is thinking about how do we make the textiles more sustainable. It's very important. Indian fast fashion industry, in this case, Lakme or other groups, they're promoting this one. But if you notice, they're able to do many aspects, but not the fiber itself. The fiber is actually from Austria. You see? So that's where the real innovation need to happen. Right? So that's why I highlighted that. So India need to build up this technology power or capability. How do you make a recycled fiber or sustainable fiber? It's a lot of work. Innovation is needed, and a lot of science, a lot of technology. Okay, so just details about Singapore, but I won't go in. So textiles is the second large polluting industry in the world. They use lots of water, they emit, they take lots of energy. That's why it is very important area. And of course, India is a major player in textiles. I'll show you and the recycling of textiles right now is less than 5%. Less than 5%. So 95% is not recycled at all. It just get burned, thrown away in the landfills. And that causes lots of problems. And so these are the numbers. So textiles consumption is actually going exponentially. And here, it's a bit busy slide, but essentially as income levels increase, we tend to have the habit of using same cloth or same garment more number of times. We tend to use them less number of times. So basically we are generating waste much more because as we become more affluent, we are throwing away more frequently. In some countries, I know they just buy and use only once. They go shop, buy it, use once, and then they discard it. So that's what it is. Yeah. So now you see the countries who are the players in a textile value chain. So that's how one could analyze it and figure out where you want to focus as a researcher or engineer if you are interested in this area. So there's the details. We go into that level of details. We can look at all the details. And again, we can look at which material has a higher carbon footprint, which has a higher environmental footprint. Such analysis is now possible. If you ask this question 20 years ago, when I was doing my, no, that's already 30 years ago, not 20 years ago. So 30 years ago, when I did my PhD, we were not even asking this question. But now, yes. So that's the difference. Yeah, so this one could analyze, and you could go to the details of a single shirt, a single garment. You could analyze the information. Again, more details. And we look at the whole recycling based on the material system. And then there's lots of details. Okay, so if you don't want to do anything in terms of real manufacturing side, but there's a lot of certification, labeling, consulting that's happening. So if you are familiar with this standardization, certification, or consulting, you could provide that service. It's again much needed. If you want to export, say, for example, garments from Tirupur or Coimbatore, question is, in the past you can export, but in the future, they're asking these data. So if you can help those companies give that data, you could help them to continue to export, probably earn the foreign exchange. So that's, the game is changing. So there's just the details, and this again to convince you, in France, there's a labeling systems. And okay, maybe they want to show me even much brighter light. They switched off the light. Okay, so you can recognize that's me, right? Okay, you had a chance to see it more sharply. That was me. And anyway, the interesting part is was that I was at Manchester Fashion Institute last month to give a talk, and then they said, "Sir, we like you to wear our new garment." It's actually theirs. It's completely made out of bark. No synthetic. Bark, tree bark. So they made the whole garment, I mean, the whole jacket from the bark. It's very interesting. Of course, I told them choose a different color. I need a different color. You guys are not smiling. You are too serious, right? Okay. Okay, so there's other details about how we go in, and Adidas, for example. Now, when they're selling products, they actually say the carbon footprint of their shoe is much better. So that's how they are differentiating themselves from others in the market. So carbon footprint becomes important. And Adidas is a large shoe manufacturer in the world, like Nike and others. So you can now imagine the impact. So these are the more details. Other part is most plastics processing, including textiles, they use lots of hazardous chemicals. So the future, you need to replace them with environmentally benign processes and chemicals. So that it's again another frontier research area. And some of the work we are doing at our university using proteases, more details. And then you could also apply nanotechnology concepts for coloring and paper industry. This I would not go in because Professor Natarajan would have told you. So it's our large scale electrospinning machine. I think it's 1.6 meter wide. We make high performance on the right side. These are actually high performance jackets for a high altitude applications. It's sold in the market. You can also integrate these sustainable textile concepts into, in this case, I work with groups, NGOs in South Africa, where we are looking at the women healthcare products. Again, there's a huge opportunity for sustainability-based design and products. There's plenty. Okay, so you could also go towards more natural materials from the stones. So you can take the natural materials, blend them instead of chemicals that are harmful. So this is the products. For basically here, we we make the textiles cooler by 2 degrees centigrade so that we can reduce the air conditioning. Right now, you have to keep that a higher level of air conditioning because you feel warmer. If your textile makes you cooler, your body, you don't need so much air conditioning load. That's the whole idea about that. So how do you make textiles, inner garments, cooling? So that's the idea of using these concepts. Okay, there's a lot more there. I won't go into that. So India has the 3rd largest plastic waste generator in the world. Yeah, and that's why Indian government is now came up with this banning single-use plastics. Many of single-use plastics have been legally banned, but of course, it will take time for implementation. That's the reason when I went to Tirumala this morning, I saw that there are 2 things I saw. So you are going through these hairpin bends, and every hairpin bend, there's a poster says, we ban plastics, don't use plastics here. Tirumala bans plastics. That's why I was taking those pictures in the car when we were coming down. I saw it, but I didn't have time to introduce those slides here, but I saw the examples. And similarly, I said the plastic bags have been replaced. It's probably their own decision or a result of national regulation. In the world, there's a lot of new regulations are coming, promoting such change in the consumer behavior. So this is more details if you are interested how recycling industry can be innovated. We can talk into the details how we decide. These are the companies we work in Singapore. Let's move to the food. I know you are also focusing on agriculture, modern agriculture. Let's look at the food. Singapore is a city-state, so we have actually no agriculture. So we import everything from others. And recently we had a major problem, partly COVID-19 problem. Other one is geopolitics because of the Ukraine war. So there are disruption to the supply chain. So we import everything and we needed to reinvent. So by 2030, Singapore will have 30% of the nutritional food needs will be met locally. That means we will be producing what we need in Singapore, agriculture, everything. So that's what you basically do agriculture in the city, not in the village. So it's a new way of going about. So you can see already restaurants now coming up. They call vegetarian butcher. If anybody looks at that one, it's confusing, right? Butcher by definition cannot be vegetarian, right? And you have a vegetarian butcher. How is that possible? Make a guess. Yes, that's right. It's a big deal now. So they're basically isolating cells and plant-based proteins, and they're actually making synthetic meat, many. And here is an example of chicken. So this is a chicken synthetic meat manufacturing plant in Singapore. We have actually on many others, shrimps and others as well. And there's a big company in the US called Impossible Foods. Check it. It's already valued several $1 billion. And if you go to US, you would actually come across Impossible Burgers. Yeah. In Singapore, you actually get all of them now. So the industry is actually changing. So this is different from, you all familiar with the tofu-based mock meat. That's been there for thousands of years. That's different. That's just tofu. You play with the texturing and that's it. But this one is really modern. It's a synthetic meat based on cell cultures, bioreactors, and you grow the tissues and you color the tissues, give the texture, taste, munchability. When you munch it, you feel exactly like the natural meat. So that's what it's. Why is it important? They say this has a lower carbon footprint than you actually get it from the animal. Animals have a higher methane emissions carbon footprint. So you see how the industry is transforming. It's happening right in front of our eyes. So these details, we look at all kinds of things. And so, yeah, that table actually has lots of such different ways synthetic meat are made and totally re-engineering the food. And it's happening. It's a major industry. Okay, so I saw recently Starbucks in India, and they announced that they will be partnering with Imagine Meats, and they would have products on the shelf. Starbucks is a large global chain. Obviously, they are introducing, right? And in India too. So we're not talking about some other country, it's in India. So right in front of you, the changes are happening. Okay, so there's more details. You say, no, I'm not interested in cell culture. I'm not interested in biology. I'm only interested in what I'm interested, which is basically, let's say, computer science, mechanical engineering, or electrical engineering, sensors. There's a lot of role for all of them in the food industry as well. So you could see that. Yeah, there's more blockchaining, fingerprinting, many other concepts are getting into this industry. Okay, this more details, some entrepreneurs. Recently, I came across in India, they started a nano urea manufacturing plant. So basically, they're integrating nano concepts and making the urea much more efficient. So you have a higher yield in the agriculture. So now imagine urea is chemical, but you can actually go towards biofertilizers and you still apply the nanotechnology concepts. There's a huge opportunity. Yeah. Okay, so New Zealand is thinking now to tax based on the burps from the animals. You remember we're talking about livestock related emissions. So why? Because they depend a lot on farming and agriculture. So they are basically looking at, when they announce they will be carbon neutral by 2050, as a country, all the emissions coming out of them have to be neutral. That's why they go through all the sectors. So that they have done certain sectors. Now they are going after the agriculture, farming sector. Exactly the point. When Indian government said by 2070, we will be carbon neutral, it means it cuts across all sectors. That's basically the point I want to make. Okay, so now we move to the housing. I got to be very careful because your director is more knowledgeable. So I think maybe lights goes off, you'll go out and then I can say whatever I want, right? Okay, well, jokes aside, I know because afternoon you might be a bit sleepy. I'm putting some jokes here and there. Point here is, this is a UNEP report, which looks at materials efficiency, how much carbon emissions you can save. One is for the G7 countries, the other one is for the India and China. So the construction, building sector has a huge role related to the carbon emissions. So of course, here, somebody says smart surfaces, you could use that, especially porous surface for the rainwater harvesting. But I understood you already have 2 lakes already designed in that way. I'm sure some technologies are there. Okay, so essentially in buildings, we have 2 kinds of emissions. One is operational carbon, energy you are consuming and others that lead to the emissions. The other one is the embodied carbon, the materials you source, how you construct, all that also relate to the carbon emissions. So for a long time, not a long time, last 20 years, building industry is focusing primarily on the operational carbon, but more and more going into the embodied carbon as well. So these are the details, how we define them. And there are some of the innovations that are happening in Singapore, as well as in other countries like Australia, Canada, UK, and US. So some of these are already being innovated. And one way to look at it is building materials. If you look at carbon intensity, you would actually get a different answers, which should be the material for buildings. So carbon intensity, in this case, steel has a very high, aluminum has a very high carbon intensity. So people think about how to design with less amount of aluminum and steel in the building. So that's how it is. Okay, so recently I've been to France. I was looking at their buildings, and they're all moving in the similar direction. So why I keep showing pictures with my own photos? Anybody guess? I just want to motivate. You also can work hard, and you can also go around the world. That's it, right? Somebody invites you, you can go there, you can still do your research, share your passion, but it's still, you can be a tourist too, right? Which is not a bad thing. In fact, most young people, when I ask them, what do you want in life? They say two things. I want to be happy, I want to go around the world, right? Even the parents say the same thing. I want my kids to be happy. The happiness is basically the common word everybody uses. Yeah, okay. So this is the indexes for cities, how we go towards, and I'm sure a city like a township like IIT Tirupati eventually could produce a report which can talk about green index, and that'll be very interesting for promoting. On the right side, we are actually built a green data center. Data centers are extremely important for digital technologies. Without data center, that is heart of digital world, the digital world cannot function. So the data centers are becoming so large, they consume lots of energy. So we call PUE, and there's a definition of PUE, power utilization efficiency. And it's right now it's typically about 1.4, 1.3. Like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, they all have these mega scale data centers. And in Singapore, at the National University of Singapore, we just established the center where we are looking at, it's a $30 million center focused on data center, which is the most efficient. And it's good for tropical conditions as well. So we use some kind of nanotechnology as well. That's why I showed. And Singapore is the largest data center in Asia. The biggest one is Silicon Valley. So again, there's a huge potential in Tirupati, this part, because I see you have there's plenty of water from Srikalahasti side. And maybe it could be a data center hub in this area, because you require data, and it's very important. So this is how we innovate in our some of our engineering companies. And okay, so way forward, essentially, it all comes down to changing our consumer behavior. We have to change the way we shop, basically. But it's easy to say, but not so easy to get it done. So in addition to that, we have to have fundamental transformation in the technology, solutions, and business models, basically. And so they say there's lots of green jobs coming up. So probably in the future, some of you might be going for those kind of jobs. And I saw this in other economic times recently. They were talking about how to introduce sustainability in the education. And actually, Stanford University just set up a sustainability school with $1 billion, $1 billion. Arun Majumdar is has been appointed as a first founding dean. And so it actually signifies Stanford University establishing a new school. It's not so easy, because unless they think it's very important, they would not establish it. So that also confirms the direction. So this is a report I was part of the author, UNESCO report, Transforming Higher Education, looking at sustainability. This report was released last month in Barcelona. We worked on this for almost 18 months. It's a UNESCO report, 100 pages, guiding the universities how to think about changing or adjusting curriculum towards more interactions on sustainability thinking to the students as well as researchers. And yeah, again, same message. I was there. Yeah. Yes. Smile, please. Yes, I was there. Okay, good. So I think this is our university. What I'll say is it's important. And if you are looking at big, I do believe India can do very well in two areas, right? Digital technologies and sustainability. And if we can bring them together, it's really strong, right? So these are the digital technologies. Imagine, for example, European Union is talking about a digital product passports. Suppose this is manufactured in India and you want to sell it in UK or Europe, it has to come with a digital passport. That means a lot of sustainability information you are actually embedding into the product. So this is how things are going. For you to understand the other way, in a more direct way, basically every part of the world is now able to compete. So they need to differentiate. The best way to differentiate is you raise the trade barriers. How do you raise the trade barriers? You cannot just say, I don't like you. You have to give a proper value-based system, which is basically sustainability, circular economy, net zero. And that's why these are things getting traction in Europe. And now US has picked up. Okay, so this is like Tomra I work with. This is a Norwegian company, sensor-based technologies, for example, automatic sorting of textiles. Textiles are very difficult to recycle. You need to sort them. So you need all kinds of sensorization, automation required. So you can, based on the colors, you can actually screen them, you can segregate them. And then after that, you have an automated plants. You can use most advanced chemical technologies. Two things. One is for labeling. That means you actually label the polymer at the molecular level. You're not putting simply the sticker on the plastic. You're actually inside the polymer, you're actually putting the QR code. That's massively game changing. So now that's one side. Other side is you want to do the automatic sorting segregation for recycling. Again, you need to have these advanced concepts, and it's happening. So there's the details, how these things can come together. All these are actually supported by national regulations. India, I know, has EPR called Extended Producer Responsibility. Singapore, we introduced a law, which is Extended Producer Responsibility. I'm the advisor to the government, where our focus is to tell the suppliers and sellers, you are responsible for the collection of the waste. So for example, if I'm selling 1 million pieces of this in India, I need to show how many I sold, and after that, at the end of the year, how many we collected back, and what is the recycling I'm doing as a company that actually even supplied these things in the market. That's called external producer responsibility. India has also actually been introducing this such new regulations and laws. So if you're interested in entrepreneurship or even in this area, you know where the emphasis is coming. That's how you create your own opportunities. Okay, so these are details. And there's some other technology which is now we're doing direct air carbon capture. That means you suck the carbon from atmosphere. So we are now doing a pilot plant where the water is used to absorb the carbon from the atmosphere and then put back that water into the circulation. So it's a very interesting idea because oceans have been the carbon sinks for a long time. So, but we are now trying to mimic the oceans and make the water bodies as the carbon sinks. That's the idea. Okay. So this is actually how the pilot plant, PUB, our water utility board, is testing it now, how the system works. Okay, those are the details. And I do not know whether you have people working in management, business school, finance, insurance. These industries now have a board member which has to have a sustainability thinking and knowledge. So it's becoming actually at the governing board level, it becomes important. Okay, so, well, this is probably my last slide where, previous one might be interesting because you have precision agriculture you're talking about. It's not our work, but in MIT, I came across they're putting some kind of sensors and AI, looking at the climate change based from the signals from the plants and vegetation. It's an interesting concept. So Indian Union Minister, he's saying the sustainability is definitely necessary for India to progress to the next stage. So that's basically a snapshot of what I intend to convey. Some of these ideas, we have written them as books that are available, but there are also other good books, many other books. If you are interested in circular economy, net zero, sustainability, you could pick up some ideas from there and see how you want to integrate in your research or in your knowledge or in your education. Again, thank you for this opportunity to come, engage with you, share whatever I know. More importantly, it's a very familiar place for me because I'm originally from Andhra. Thank you. Yes, sure. Yes, please. So thank you. Bhutan is a neighbor to India, and Bhutan came up with the first time several years ago called Happiness Index, and many countries said no, that's not the right way to measure it, and not very clear. But later on, what happened was some of the think tanks in the Western countries now started introducing somewhat similar concepts. So like that, it would take some time for the world to understand what they're saying. So Bhutan's green index, carbon emissions, I have a feeling that's probably very good because their way of living is quite nature-oriented system. And even tourism, they're highly restrictive. They won't allow lots of people to go there in a year. So they have everything limited. Their social practices, culture seems to be carbon friendly, environmentally friendly. When they propose and they want world to take notice of it, the challenges are sometimes they don't have the data, transparency and verifiability. And if it cannot be verified, people won't subscribe to it automatically. So always is very important to have a data and a verifiability by third party. Then that becomes more credible. So I didn't go into the detail. It's called ESG reporting, environmental, social, and governance reporting, which all the listed companies have to do now. So when they produce that report, if third party cannot verify, they're questionable. In different countries, the chairmen or CEOs are now resigning because they did not actually show the proper documentation. So basically, point is Bhutan, in my sense, is doing a lot of good things. But when they say, and the parameters they use, data they have, accuracy of the data, and also can that be verified? These are actually the challenges. And if they can do that, I'm sure they would be able to, they will be recognized much more strongly worldwide. Okay, thank you. So there are two questions. One is the solid waste management. Other one is medical waste. Medical waste is a subset of the total solid waste. And right now, medical waste management is completely the same, no change actually, because it is still considered deemed hazardous. And it's mostly go through the incineration process because there are concerns about secondary infections. So medical waste, I have not seen any major breakthrough in the world, including Singapore. So when it comes to solid waste management, the progress is waste to energy, which we have done a considerable progress. And we can use that waste energy to run the plant. So we are making the plant carbon neutral in that way because you're not tapping into the additional energy. Yeah, biomass gasification as well. And they're also blending. Third one now they're doing is this sewerage sludge. They're actually dumping into that one. Yes. Just for the audience, I'm explaining. Normally water, once you flush out of the toilets, what happens? Most people don't know what happens. It just go through somewhere. Places like London, if you are dreaming to go to London, that's what happens. They collect all the water, whether it is, you drink and sip and throw, or toilet water, all kinds of stuff is collected. Singapore collects it, all the water. We have a deep sewerage tunnel system worth $7 billion. Every household is connected. Deep below, I think it's probably 15 meters below the tunnels. So it's a gravity fed is collected, and it'll go to the two ends of the Singapore. And then they get compressed, water is squeezed out. You have the solid mass. The solid mass goes for the incineration, co-incineration, and we produce energy from there. Whereas that water is actually circulated. It's treated, cleaned, mixed again, and it goes for drinking. Yeah. So I can say I knock off half the visitors to Singapore now, right? Probably more. Yes. Yeah, well, actually, London, I know they're doing it. So, but everybody wants to go to London, right? So anyway, but they clean it very well. Nothing to worry, because they clean it to WHO standards. They make it like almost like distilled water first. Then after that, they'll remineralize it. They add minerals, and that's what they do. So they take it seriously. But people always have a doubt. So you can't really completely convince everybody. But that's a fact of life. Yeah. Yes. Okay, say it again. We have a gender balance. Yes, go ahead. You can twist the question. Oh, you missed it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the way the guys who do incineration, which is the case in most countries, at least most developed countries, the way they position is, if I do not do a proper incineration, high quality incineration, or open incineration, they have a proper incineration plants, and then effluent gases, they treat them. And they make sure, they say that they treat them, and they will also look at the quality of the emittents. Yeah. So the way the position is, previously, the humanity is just dumping in the open waters, land. That's much more harmful compared to incineration. So that's how they switched to incineration. But that is actually not the final ultimate solution. Ultimate solution is actually segregation, separation, and recycling. And that requires a lot more technologies, as well as labor intensive, cost intensive. For example, plastic. We're going to set up a PET recycling plant in Singapore, but plastics are 6 major plastics are there. Very difficult to get that kind of volumes, get the plants running. So we figured out PET, which is Coca-Cola bottles, easy to collect and then you can have a volume. You can run a good plant and then upcycle, recycle them. So now, if that can happen to all the different major 6 different plastics, is a good story. But now the plastics alone are not disposed. They actually commingle with food waste and other stuff. So you are actually mixing a lot of things. So how do you do the recycling? Difficult. So right now they're doing what they call substitute single-use plastics, the bioplastics, like the one Tirumala Devasthanam. Now they change it to compostable plastic. So now imagine somebody use the same bag, but he's now eating a dosa or idli. Maybe he didn't like it. He only ate half of it. Now he throws it. Now that's your solid waste. And what happens now? If we can recycle it, how? So that's why now they're designing biodigesters and thermal digesters, and you produce the compost, which goes as a fertilizer. That's what they're doing. But that's still not enough, because you're still not generating high value. You really need to recycle the material. So it's still a long way, but that's the direction to go. Yes. Thank you. That is exactly the problem. The waste, when it is generated at the generation point, it's never segregated. It's always mixed and it's so heterogeneous. It's impossible to really recycle properly. And what can be done? There is no single silver bullet. No, you need many technologies. No way one technology will solve all the mixed waste that's happening. No way. Japan, I came across, there are tiny cities, small cities. They develop this culture of complete recycling. So it's households, for example, before they throw away the bottle, they clean it and they keep it separately. And the water, somehow they figure out a way of collecting separately. So it's a cultural change. And so it's a cultural change, behavioral change, coupled with some of the emerging technology solutions is the only way. But if you say you throw whatever you want, and I have a system to recycle it, no. All they have is basically incineration or composting. But that's, I do not think that's really the desirable goal. While it's better rather than just throwing it away, still better, but it is not ultimately the best. Yeah. But actually, I see the optimistic way. There's a lot of people can do innovation. You see, that's the whole point. I know one company is called Security Matters, listed in Australia. They now say they can molecular label plastics. You give me any plastic, I can label it at the molecular level, and I can help you to segregate. That's what they say. It's a listed company. Well, it's an innovation. So my sense is there is a problem, requires lots of innovation, and let all these brilliant guys, passionate guys do something, right? Otherwise, they'll be watching movies or all kinds of stuff. Sorry, I'm now sounding more like a professor, but I'm a professor, of course. But that's true, yes. Thank you. At the consumption level, actually, most people don't even care about whatever I said. nobody even, I'm thankful you guys are at least keep the eyes open and sleeping is good. Most places, most people are not bothered. They're not interested in circular economy, sustainability, nothing at all. When I go to the shopping malls, I observe the behavior. They probably learn something in somewhere, but actual behavior is very different. So there's a huge gap. This is fundamentally, I think, I'm not an expert, but the more you use the word happiness, I want to be happy. All they're thinking is what is instant happiness I can get? Okay, I go to this one, I eat something, done, throw, finish. Okay, that dress is just released and I wear it. I go for the next photo shoot, I look good, and then after forget about it. You look at I'm not against weddings, but I'm saying I have not seen anyone wearing the same dress any next wedding. It's all come different colors and different designs, right? So same, look at the parties, I studied in UK and all other places. I've seen there are lots of, every week they have some function. And they all make a lot of effort to look different. That means they're buying new things. So somehow, the more we project your life purpose is to be happy, you're automatically driving the consumerism. Because that's how they understand. Like I go to buffet, I eat as much as I want because I'm happy. So that seems to be a serious, actually I advocate, don't emphasize happiness too much. Just tell them live the life, that's it. The more you talk about, good life, purposeful life and happiness, all that stuff, you're driving them to like crazy, literally. And they're getting very stressful. Nowadays, London, most people can't afford any place. And they say, good living means I must have a place. No, I can't. I actually say, I can tell you a story. Once I went to Morocco to give a talk. This French lady was in my audience. After that, I was going to the airport. She said, sir, can I take a ride with you? I said, yeah. So we were talking 1 hour. And then she said, well, my father was an ambassador and I had a good life. My father had 5 cars. I had a good life. And I have 3 sons. They're in Paris. They're literally struggling. They can't even own a place. They're not migrant. Actually, she's a French citizen. She's saying, my sons, I can't see any hope. The prices are so high. I can't see them owning anything. Whereas she said, I own already a big house somewhere. My father even had a better life. This is exactly what she said. This was probably before the COVID. So now imagine the stress level on those boys who they're only late 20s, I was told. That's what she said. So they're completely enamored with the challenges of the current high-paced living. Too much goes on. So they're struggling. So they don't have time for circular economy sustainability. They say yes, but actually in practice, they're driven by other things. So fundamentally, I think we need to rephrase the terminology. What is good living? What is purposeful living? What's the meaning of life? They really need to be revised and requires a deep thinking on that. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Thank you. So this is, I think some of you know, I was a dean before and vice president strategy and many other roles. So what happens in our university, when it was teaching university, when we switched to research university, our advisors from the international visiting committees, they suggested everyone should be doing research. And then the question would be, how do they demonstrate they're doing good research? One would be an impactful work. Again, that would be a product that is manufactured and sold. With time, I understood it's actually more difficult. I think Professor Natarajan may not agree with me, but my personal experience is I've set up several companies, not me, my students. it's tough, really tough. I'm not talking about just setting up a company and I make one prototype and sell it to some neighbor. No, I'm talking about the real business where my sales volumes are growing and my revenues are growing. I'm starting with $100,000 to $1 million, 10 million, $1 billion, whatever. That's tough. You need a different skills. So my understanding is if you have that skills and knowledge and ability to work with the private sector and other value chain, please do that. I did that through my students because I realized I don't have so much time. I cannot, because I still have to focus on research and I don't have time to go to the investors, do a pitch, raise the money, looking at the plants, manufacturing is quite different. So deliberately, I shifted that to my students and postdocs if they're interested. So here is the data. 1 in 100 only interested in doing any entrepreneurship. Most of them just want to have a job and good life because they have the same definition of good life. So they don't want to really take any risk. 1 in 100 students has that somehow, no, I want to do myself. I want to be my own way. So that 1 in 100 students, we can say, hey, here is the innovation. Let's see how you want to take it to the industry, scale it up, work with them. Of course, the other models is you work with the company on a what we call consulting or advising technology transfer that we do all the time. So if I have an innovation in my lab, I can license it to some company. That's fine. Or if I have this company has some problem, I can guide them based on my knowledge and experience how they could go about. That is limited, but the real impact actually productizing through your students and postdocs, which is really satisfying, but very, very challenging. And so I understood, I have a training in management, so I'm very familiar with the management practices. And so I myself worked in HAL for 4 years, where I was actually a shop manager. So I've seen the real world, how it happens. Consciously, I made a decision that I will outsource that part to the others. I help them. So I have no conditions at all. If any of my staff want to do any commercialization, I cheer them. I said, do it. I'm with you. I don't need anything from you. If you succeed, I'll get the name because that idea is from my lab anyway, right? Like electrospinning, everybody knows me. There's no question of not knowing me. So if you are a student from my lab, no matter what you claim, it'll still come back to me. So I had a student, Japanese student, he went and set up an unknown company, very successful. They always say, back to the lab, right? So many other sectors where my own former team members, they have gone on, did that, but I can still always link it to, related to the work we did. And of course, you have a patenting process that could be used. Then the next part is I realized, because I was a vice president as well as a dean and leader, and I was recruiting people as well. So I realized there's a fundamental change in the research enterprise. So when I was in HL, it's a story, sorry, you had to listen to the stories. HL, I'm talking about 1987. So HL, at the time, the Indian government foreign exchange problem, and we need to import some technologies. There's not enough money. So HL boss called me and said, you're developing this. I'm actually shop floor manager. I have 50 employees and I was looking at the manufacturing. He said, no, you had to develop this. So I actually developed the certain coatings for HL. To do that, these are licensed technologies from US and Europe. So US and Europe. The guys never shared anything with us to the HL. So what happened? My boss says, you go and search. You want to go to wherever you want. My problem is I need to work daytime job and I still need to. So I figured out ISRO and NAL right next door. They actually have a satellite-based search system. Before all these Googles and all that came, there's no Google Scholar at that time. There's not even any database. You all go to the physical library and look for the information. Journals, like IST, I used to go, read, take all the journals, read, right? That's the first time I use a satellite-based system to search. for these coatings. Interesting. They only give you the title and abstract. You cannot download the paper. What? My boss says you'll do research. I was thinking if I don't do it, I won't get promoted. I'll be stuck like some junior engineer. And of course, he also told me, actually, the managing director want to give his daughter to you if you do well. So he's like the whole, it's quite nice, you know. So I thought it was very nice. I better work hard. So I was working hard. And, you know, managing director, right? It's a good life automatically. So this is a real story. I'm not making it up. So I got this satellite staff. We just give the title and abstract. There's no paper. Then how do I know what is written? But that's all we have. So I was able to innovate and it was a success. I got the national awards. It was good on the television and all that. The main thing is, that's 1987. Now, when I went to Cambridge, you know, we were using email and we were able to search a lot of databases. I went to Japan and I asked them, I want an email. That university said, sir, what is the email? What is that? This is Kyoto. I was shocked. They have no idea what is email. I think they're all looking at this guy, some dinosaur, came a dead guy coming here and talking, right? I can see that look. Hey, I'm still alive. I'm still okay. It's not a ghost talking to you. Yeah, they have no idea what email. So I insisted I need an email because I want to save money. You know, Indian parents, right? They ask you every day, they call you. All they ask is the same thing. Did you eat or not? Did you sleep or not? It's like, okay, of course I eat, I sleep, but I can't tell my mother and father, hey, don't ask me all the time. So I said, okay, but I need something cheaper. The phones are expensive. I need an email. So I insisted I need email. I need to do for research. They said, okay, okay. So finally I got it. Why am I telling you is that that is 1993. Now fast forward to 2000. First time you have the Web of Science, Scopus got digitized. 2010, Google Scholar. Nowadays, if anybody wants to invite you worldwide, all they check is Google Scholar. They don't know you actually. I get so many invitations worldwide because I look very strong on the Google Scholar. Amazing. You have a doubt, go to some of the conferences. They say, we have the plenary speaker. Right below that, they say, his H-index is this one, right? So there's immense benefits if you get it. Basically, you don't need to ask your director, head of the department, dean, please give me this, you know, the air ticket fare or a hotel fare, nothing. They will invite you anyway, right? They will take care of everything. So I figured out a few years ago, there's a lot of benefits, really. So you want to go for a promotion, they are going to ask you, were you ever invited on a top conference? You say, you have to produce that evidence. That's how the promotion tenure system works, at least in our university. Are you in charge of some editor? Are you editor of some journal? They won't even invite you because you've not even met them. You need to network. So if they know you in a conferences, maybe the chief editor is sitting there, oh, this guy is okay. Then they'll say, hi, join the editorial board. Right? So you are building up your profile in many, many different ways. And I get exchange students from all over the world. It's because they know you through these kind of platforms. So there's lots of multiple benefits more than just should I publish or dogmatic view. That's fine. Much more than that, even all the universities I know, international universities like Imperial College, Cambridge, Harvard, MIT, they say we don't care about these things. In the promotion tenure, they actually ask that information. This is a reality. I sit in some of the promotion committees in the world. First thing they send me the guy's CV. Then after that, they give a benchmarking report. They'll say this guy, and then there are 10 other guys they compare. What do they compare? Same thing. Because nothing else can compare, you see. For example, she says, I solve some problem. And he will say, I also solve the problem. How do I know? Because I'm not expert in your field. I'm not expert in your field. That most people cannot be an expert in everything. That's why they still go on to this common, readily available information as one filter. And they have other filters. Of course, they do still look at what work you've done. So it's a combination. And this is how the reality works. So instead of having a resistance, see how you can make use of it and have fun with it. I don't have to believe that's important, but if it is helping you, why not? What's the problem, right? So I can go into lots of detail because I'm actually advisor to the Clarivate Analytics, which is bought by Singapore with $3 billion from Thomson Reuters. They split into two. So one half is sold to the Singapore company. It's a private equity fund. So it's about $10 billion. I'm their advisor. So we look at all the data actually. So I'm also, full disclosure, I'm advisor to the QS. If I want, I can actually would know all the data about the institutions. They would actually share with us before it is released publicly. And I won't even tell these details to my own university because I had to maintain confidentiality. So after that, my boss will ask, hey, we are looking good in the QS ranking. Yeah, I saw the data because you see it, right? So bottom line is there's a lot of databases. There's a lot of such systems are there, and they are basically based on these things. So you can't avoid it. If you want to avoid it, go back to the back. That means you start living in maybe 1990s, then this is not an issue. But we're talking 2022. And if you are a guy starting your career in your, say, early 30s, you got another 30 years to go. These become even more and more entrenched. I give one example. My students right now, not my students, this guy is actually doing PhD with a Nobel laureate in NUS. One day he came to me and said, Professor, I want to talk to you. Ah, you're not my student, but you can still talk to me. So he said, Professor, actually I'm doing something with 28 other PhD students. So I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm designing a web-based system. So we want to remove the struggles by the researchers. So it's called Open Read. So they design a platform. You just put whatever paper you want to write. It will study all the papers published. It will actually create you all the data, all published. It will actually do the literature review for you. It will organize for you. And this guy is actually doing a PhD in NUS, and he's a professor of Nobel laureate in graphene. So I asked him, are you sure you're still, he said, yeah, I keep my professor happy, but I'm also interested in this one. So he's doing two things and many others. And that platform, like that kind of platforms are just one example. Springer has similar platform called Nano. It does exactly similar. So these are all coming now. So imagine what will happen. It's all powered by all this massive digital advancement. So it is driving research world and cannot be avoided. So I'm even familiar, some of the governments ask for the data when they want to compare institutions and partnerships and things. So simple advice is that is not your ultimate goal, but that's something to have. Why not? Okay, so thank you. Well, while entrepreneur is a broad word, the question is, what is that person's dream? How big is that dream? If the guy says, I just want a good living for myself, simple, that's one way. But the guy says, I want to be the world leader. It's a different proposition. The world leader means the guy really need to think through the model, very solid way. And then of course, be ready to change it. And so my sense is entrepreneurs, they can figure out how big they want to think. It's up to them. You're thinking a very simple way. And then the question is, you need a deep skill as an entrepreneur, and you have to have a management skill. If you don't have it, you outsource it to somebody. Most important is they should be aware how the competition in the same domain is happening. Otherwise, they will be out. Yeah, these are basic things. Then, of course, when you say specific technologies, I can talk about it. Otherwise, this would be the broad statement. If you say no, I really want to know on a specific technology based, I would think you should have at least few patents as an entrepreneur so that you have some protection. Then after that, you figure out how to uh, make that product either by yourself or somebody else. It could be service as well. And then it's about making sure you deliver it and you position the opportunity, because entrepreneurs need the opportunity and they need to position themselves. Like before this 2 days ago, I met a company owner in Chennai. So when COVID-19 happening, he got a call from the health minister and he said, we checked, you have the PCR machine, you bring it. You know, you don't get the call from the health minister. He said, oh, how did they even know that I have this machine? He's not just a small entrepreneur, not small. He's got about maybe 400 crore business. So beautifully he went and said, yeah, okay, this is it. And then this is Tamil Nadu government. And after 1 week, they said, you have the license, you make the PCR machines. He was laughing. He's got a wonderful business. And that's what he was showing me. I didn't bring it here. I have it in my car. Then he said, hey, here is it. Keep it yourself. What is that? It's a nano silver sanitizer. So he came up with a nano. It's very nice. You can put it here like it's more like you know, the business cards you keep it, exactly like that kind of design. Very cool. So he gave it to me one. He said, check it. Oh, it's nice. Okay. So well, you know, look at it, how he's thinking. He's already positioned himself. Sanitizers are needed. What exactly his business was? His business was actually stem cell banking. When women deliver the babies, you have the umbilical cord that has lots of stem cells and nutrients. So what they do is the woman doesn't know mostly. So they educate them. You keep your stem cells. So what they do is actually, I give you some space. Your stem cells, which are going to be thrown away, I keep it for you. You just pay 1,000 rupees a month or whatever. So the mothers are very emotional. They will look at the young fathers. Of course, they will say, I will do anything for my wife. Yes, come, sign the paper, give that 1,000 rupees a month, and they are happily doing the stem cell bank. Then they figure out, while you are keeping the stem cell, it's called amniotic fluid. It comes along with that, it's thrown away. So now they collect the amniotic fluid, they just freeze it, they extract some nutrients from there, and they're selling worldwide. He's an entrepreneur. And then PCR machine is only they use it for testing. Now the opportunity gave you started the PCR machine. Then as he's selling the PCR machines, he understood sanitizer is better. So he started the sanitizer. Then I asked him, where are you going next? He said, we figured out this sanitizer we made of silver ions, and somehow they are killing the bacteria. We start spraying on the food, because when you buy a bag of, let's say, mangoes, maximum you can keep it 1 or 2 days. You will give that bag of this many, like with love you give. How am I going to eat, right? So anyway, it'll be spoiled. So now he says, you spray on it, the same thing. He says, this survives for 1 week. He now says, I'm spraying on all this stuff. Of course, he's asking me, can you sell this in Singapore? He wants to grow his market. So you look at the entrepreneur, right? So this is how they think. They're very enterprising. And enterprising mind is just the mind. You need entrepreneur in every aspect. Yeah. Did I answer you, or you want me to go on? Yes. Yes.
have a small metro board. Close to Kalahasti. Yeah. See Kalahasti here? Yeah. Kalahasti is a major center for Kalahari art. Kalahari art. There are three Kalahari art. Kalahasti school. It's all they use only limited colors. It's all natural. Other one is the Matslipatam school. They use this. These, yeah. There is this 100%